Hello, everybody. This is Francesca from Fattoria di Montemaggio. Welcome back with the Wine Thursday. I'm so happy that, of course, we are back with Wine Thursday in English. Of course, you you probably noticed that during the last 2 weeks we did some live sessions, some live streaming with some Italian guests, and so after so many lives in English, we thought it was also good to give some space to Italian content on our Facebook page. So of course it was very nice to also do some wine discussion in Italian. But I'm also very happy that we are back to English for this Wine Thursday. So today we are going to cover one of my favorite topic, one of my favorite argument, which is the vineyard versus the soil. So mm, we spend so much time, and when I say we, I mean the people that are in the wine industry, or generally speaking, the wine lover. I'm first of all a wine lover, and second, of course, I'm a person that is working in the wine industry. But we, the wine lover, we spend so much time, fantasizing and speaking about the interaction between soil and vines, and then of course the soil and the wine itself. So I thought it was nice also to clear out a little bit this kind of argument, to let's say understand a little bit better what's the real relationship between soil and the vineyard, and what is also the good soil for the vineyard. So let's say first of all that a good soil for vineyards is that kind of soil that really can let suffer the vines. So the more you let suffer the vineyard, the better it will be in terms of quality. Maybe you will produce less, but of course the stress that you create, a situation of stress and hydrical stress, also in terms of lack of water that you will create. Maybe you will of course have a little less production, but at the end of the day the quality will be way higher. And of course it's very simple. Think about water. The less water you have, the less residual water you have inside the soil, the less the vines are going to drink. So the juice inside the grapes is going to be less diluted, and then of course the wine will be of a higher quality, at least when it comes about the red wine. Then of course if we're talking about rosé, in general rosé want to be a little bit more diluted, let's say. Pardon me for the word, but it's also stylistic choice, I would say, at some point. And there maybe you can also use some kind of soil that are rich of a little bit more rich, let's say, of water. But generally speaking, especially for red wine, you want the juice to be very concentrated, and it's fantastic when you have, of course, just a little tiny percentage of water in the soil, just the minimum that is necessary for the vineyard to survive, especially maybe during very hot summer. But that's it. It's a very limited quantity. But anyway, of course, let's try to dive into the conversation. Let's try to understand a little bit better what kind of soil are good for the viticulture, and also a little bit better the interaction. I will try to give you some example of very good interaction, very peculiar, I would say, interaction between vineyards and the soil in itself. So when it comes about the best soil for vineyards, probably the best one are the ones that are formed by a mixture of particles of different sizes. In fact, in this way, it would be possible to have more beneficial effect because of the different size of soil components. This is also the reason why soils that are preferred on hilly areas, or also downstream of them, so the bottom part of the valley, where there is the collection of sediment dragged by erosive agents. Of course, I want to say something about specifically about the best portion of the hill, where you can find the best quality in terms of production of grapes. So it's true that of course maybe you can have a very good quality kind of kind of soil at the bottom part because of the different sizes of the particles and the different size of the particles of soils. But it's also true that usually you make the best selection on the top of the hill. Again, we are coming back to the previous argument. So the hydrical stress, you have less water because, I mean, imagine, of course, you have a hill, and when it's raining, the water, tends to go down to the bottom part of the hill. So there you're going to have way more accumulation of water. And generally speaking, you're going to produce a much more diluted kind of wine. Again, it's not a bad selection of grapes. It's generally speaking not the best one for red wines. That's it. And again, also on top, you have less water, but there's also another reason. You have, generally speaking, a better exposition, so way more sun. And then, of course, you're going to develop thicker skin in terms of grapes. And the grapes are, generally speaking, smaller, a little bit smaller, and the juice will be way more concentrated. But anyway, again, also on the bottom part, generally speaking, if you have this kind of condition, where you have different sizes of soil components, it could be very, very good. Anyway, we were saying, there's this kind of like collection of sediment that are dragged by erosion agents. In this position, it would be easier to have a soil composed of different components, which are also distributed in different layers. That's also very important, and you will understand later in this discussion why. These soil types are the result of thousands of years of erosion by different agents, such as wind, water, gravity, or also glacial activity, believe it or not. All these factors have broken up and transformed and deposited different types of particles soil, each with its own size and chemical composition, which go to make up the fabric of the soil. So you're going to have everywhere you go, you're going to find a very unique and peculiar kind of soil composition, just because every area has its own history, every area has its own past, and all the different zones, even from the same wine region, believe it or not, are going to be composed from different kind of soil. Even the same Chianti Classico area, well, I mean, all the subzone of Chianti Classico exists because, of course, we have different terroirs. We want to remind that terroir doesn't mean only territory. It means the relationship that you have between climate of a certain region, soil, topography of a vineyard, and also the human factor, so the style that the human wants for his wine. But anyway, the soil, it plays a very important role in the terroir equation. So each area, even in the same Chianti Classico area, is going to be totally different, just because there's also different kind of composition in terms of soil. And there are some areas where you have more, probably more, let's say, diversity. I'm sorry, I couldn't find a word in English. Diversity in terms of geological composition. Some other areas that are much more, let's say, stable in terms of geological composition. But anyway, all the different zones are going to have their own different history. In addition to what I said before about the fact that those kind of size of the different particles of soil and chemical composition are going to make up the fabric of the soil. In addition, I want to say this agent that created this kind of deposit and particles. I've worked in different historical epochs, and of course, therefore, the soil is divided into several layers of different nature. The parts that are closest to the surface are, composed purely of organic material, such as humus. That's the first layer, basically. It's the closest part to the surface, and it's purely organic material. This is composed by basically the decaying of plant and animal materials. And it's also rich in nutrients, and it has an excellent water retention capacity. This is probably this is the one part that we are at least interested, I would say, in the cultivation for vine. as it's often planted, of course, vineyards are often planted in soils poor of those kind of elements. And of course, you want to force the plants to develop its root a little bit more in the depth. That's the idea. And of course, the more the vines are going also to dig into the soil, of course, the more they suffer, the more they work. And then, of course, you're going to have, again, a better also quality. We come back again to the same argument. Underneath this organic layer, of course, this first layer, there is the real and prosperous soil, which can be, formed from few tens of centimeters of many meters deep. This soil is the one obtained by erosion and is the one which is characterized, by very unique and peculiar kind of characteristic. I would say that this is the kind of soil that really characterizes the nature of the geological composition of a certain area. And in this soil, the roots will sink, and this will influence the organoleptic characteristic of the wine that is produced from it. Underneath this layer of soil, there is also the rocky substratum, from which can be detached particles such as stones and rocks, which will make up the skeleton of the soil, basically. Other times, these particles, or at least a percentage of them, come from nearby geological elements that are transported by erosive agent, often torrents and glaciers. So that's also something that you need to understand. Of course, if a specific wine region is, located nearby a torrent or a river, there's also this factor to consider. So now you know a little bit more into detail what kind of soil we want for the vineyard. And again, we said we need something that really will create some kind of like sufferance for the vineyard and will really create, this kind of situation where the vines are going to give their best. Let's say there's no other way to explain this kind of let's say idea. What I want also to give you now is a very practical example, a very peculiar interaction of soil and vineyard. And I will give you two very good example actually. One of the two example, it's something that now I think it's a very discussed argument, and it's related to Italy, but I will tell you more later. The first example is related to France, and I want to bring as an example the Chablis area. We are in the North Burgundy, Chablis, so very specific region, very cold region. And this kind of region, it has a very peculiar kind of wine. It's a Chardonnay that doesn't sound like a typical Chardonnay. It's a Chardonnay that it's super mineral. They have this kind of like aroma of whetstone, very, amazing complexity, really, really amazing complexity, amazing acidity. So those are also wines that really can age for quite a long time. I really recommend you to try Chablis. They are a little bit aged compared to the average, because those kind of wines really give their best, a little bit more, let's say, further in the wine aging process. And you have a very particular situation in terms of geological composition. You have a soil which is mainly composed by a mix of clay, limestone, and ancient marine fossil like oyster shells. Believe it or not, there was a sea, an ocean, billions and billions of years ago. And of course, you have this particular situation in terms of geology. And, it's really probably the perfect example of first of all, of a terroir wine. And it's a very, very, very good example of a vineyard and a grape variety that is, having this kind of like amazing interaction with the soil. And it's bringing out so many qualities from that specific soil. And so first of all, again, it's the perfect environment to let suffer the vines. We have, of course, temperature that are a little bit colder that, are going to bring out this kind of like also beautiful acidity from the wine. giving also a little bit more of elegance and finesse to the wine. But also we have the soil that is going to let suffer the vineyard a little bit more, and it's also going to leave a trace in terms of organoleptic perception. In this specific case, as I told you, we have this kind of like aroma that will remind you to whetstone, and it's super typical. And that's Chablis. That's what they're famous for, and it's all related with the soil and in general with the pedoclimatic conditions. So also the climate plays such an important role. But again, the peculiarity of their geological situation, their geological composition is the number one thing. So I really recommend you to try their wines, and those kind of wines are really, really good example of a grape, in this case Chardonnay, that really change a lot interacting with a certain kind of geological environment. Next example, of course, we have Italy, and in the first place, I wanted to bring out some example related with Chianti Classico area, or at least with Tuscany. But then I found something very interesting. I was studying about Piedmont a few weeks ago, and again, as a wine lover, I read a lot of articles, read a lot of books, and taste a lot of wines. And I was reading about Piedmont lately, and I found out they have a system of subzone, which are called MGA, which is similar to our UGA, so to the kind of system that we have nowadays in Tuscany, but is a little bit more. There's a little catch in this kind of like system. First of all, it's a very complex kind of system, I would say, and it's basically literally in Italian means menzioni geografiche aggiuntive, so geographical adjunctive mention. So in this kind of system, you have the area of Barolo, which is basically divided in 181 different subzones. So it's super complex, diversified kind of system, 181, which is based mainly on the different, also the different kind of soils component and the different vineyards. Every vineyard has its own microclimate, and every vineyard is its own kind of soil. And you have this kind of like different sections. Again, 181, which is fantastic. It's so much different kind of subzone, and there you have this amazing, possibility of have a super typicity, explain throughout the wine. So the wines talk about the real specific, the specific vineyards, just like a crew, we can say, from France. So it's super, super, particular as a situation. And again, there are of course a lot of persons that are discussing about it. It's good, it's bad, it's functional. I would say it's functional, because I really like this kind of like a system of communication, especially as a wine lover. I really adore being informed about the typicity of the territory where the wine is produced, where the wine that I'm drinking that specific moment is produced. And I really need to have the correct vision about the terroir that produced that specific wine. So again, I think it's an incredible tool that we have nowadays. This kind of thing of the subzone. No matter if we're talking about the MGA from Barolo area, or if you're talking about UGA from Chianti Classico. But again, it's a powerful tool to communicate even more the territory and the wine. And again, when you understand a little bit more about the subzone where the wine is produced, you have a better understanding of what the wine it will be, and you can immediately pick your favorite, at least in theory. You can understand what's your favorite wine, and you can choose a little bit better what you want to drink. That's the idea. This is my vision. And in terms of subzone, I really like this kind of like approach that communicate very in a very specific way, the territory. And also, it's very nice to understand that those kind of people are also researching more and more about soil, and we know so much nowadays about the interaction that we have between soil and the vineyard, and it's really literally everything. Everything starts from the vineyard. Everything starts from the nature, and everything starts from the soil. So it's a combination between geological composition and the vines. So the work that those kind of elements, the nature, the mother nature, do in general, and on a daily basis. So this kind of relationship, it's everything. It's really, really, really everything. So again, just to make a small recap, if you want to have a good soil to grow your vineyard, it should be a soil that lets suffer the vines. Not that much water, just a little quantity of water will be necessary. And you need to create a little bit of stress for the vineyard in order to create much more concentration, way much more concentration, and a better, situation in terms of also, not that much quantity of grapes on a single plant. I will give a very extreme example because I know this kind of idea, that of course I'm trying to pass to you, that of course you don't want to have a plant that is full of grapes. It could be a little bit confusing, but just imagine for 1 second, again, it's a very extreme and super theoretical example, but just imagine for 1 second, I have 2 vines. First vine is full of grape. Second vine has just few grapes, not that much. And I have 2 liter of grape juice, okay? Again, super theoretical. It's an absurd example, but it will really explain you why I'm telling you you don't want to have that much grapes on a single plant. So I need to distribute the first liter of grape juice in the first plant, so lots of grapes, and a second grape juice, the second bottle of 1 liter, in the other plant that doesn't have that much grapes. Where will I find the best concentration in terms of the 1 liter of juice? In the first plant or in the second one? Of course, in the second one, because it has less grapes, and so the juice will be way more concentrated, and then of course you're going to produce a better wine. That's the idea. So a soil that will give a much more stress is going to give you also, again, not that much quantity, and of course you're going to produce a higher quality kind of wine. So I hope you enjoy, of course, this little chat about the soil and the vineyard, and I hope, of course, now this will help you to understand a little bit better why in certain kind of terroir, in certain kind of environment, in certain kind of areas with a specific geological composition, you are going to have such a unique kind of wine and super typical kind of wine, which are so much depending so much on the soil, and they're expressing a lot the characteristic of the soil. And talking about the wine is really telling you about the terroir in general, but also in particular about the soil. So I hope you enjoy this wine discussion. I hope, of course, you have some good input also in order to start to inform yourself. We have this powerful tool, which is the web, the internet, so you can find whatever you want at this point. So as I always told you since the beginning of this format, we have everything. It takes 1 click to understand everything, and it's so important to, especially when it comes about beautiful things like wine, to understand where the wine is produced, what kind of choice the producer is making, what kind of disciplinary, that specific wine area, that specific wine region has. It's so important. You just need to Google it. You just need to look for it, and you will have everything, all the answer. And it's super important to become, very responsible drinker. Not in terms, of drinking less, drinking better. That's also very important. Of course, we should drink less but better. But it's also important in terms to understand what we like. Every palate is different. Every person as its own idea of wine, as its own taste of wine. So again, I hope you enjoy. I want also to tell you that this is not, of course, related with the discussion about soil in the vineyard, but I would like to tell you, to remind you, all of you, that we are having a little promo that we wanted, of course, to make this gift to all of you. We're having this little promo to celebrate the springtime, and if you, of course, if you if you are in our newsletter, you probably already know. If you're not, I'm going to tell you now. Using the coupon code that we're going to leave in the description, you can have the 15% of discount on our Cuvée Brut Cielo di Montemaggio and on our Rosé. And this offer will expire on the 15th of March. And for the person that belong to the group of Friends of Montemaggio, there's a little surprise. So if you want to know more about it, request the access, and we'll be very, very happy to include you in the group. For the people that don't know about it, it's a private group that we have since 1 year and a few months at this point, so it's been a while. And basically there we post exclusive content every week about the world of wine. So we are trying to communicate, even more about territory, Chianti Classico, about organic viticulture, and all those kind of arguments. So if you're interested to know more about this kind of thing, you can request the access. So again, thank you so much. And of course, I hope you are doing fine. I hope you're doing well. Cheers, and see you next time. Ciao.